Sunset Conversation is a live stream project which brings in conversation international or related people.
Fourteenth session of Sunset Conversations. I'm back in the studio and waiting for Hanna from Hush Leaf, London.
Hello. Hi, can you hear me?
1 second, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Change this.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, perfect.
Brilliant.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to Sunset Conversations, session number 14. How does it feel?
Interesting. I never had a live video call on Instagram with anyone, so this is the first time with you.
Okay, great. I mean, there's always a first time, and I hope you're gonna enjoy this and do more of this. I've seen you very active in my conversations, and for that, I want to thank you a lot. You always put some really interesting questions down.
You know, a couple of weeks ago, just randomly, your live session popped up on Instagram, and I was online, and I just clicked on it, and I listened to it. It was with the Israeli artist who works in fashion, and it was so interesting. I just felt this is something really good. I would love to talk to you and to other artists as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, I don't know if you got the moment when I said it, but especially in the first sessions, I was kind of encouraging other artists to kind of create a similar network so that we can expand. And I guess Neil Kryzak from Los Angeles once said we should build up an alliance of like-minded people, which is a sentence I really liked. But also, I mean, I believe in also mixing with people who has different mindsets.
This is very, very important. Actually, I just drafted a post for Instagram to talk about how important communities of artists are, not necessarily physically coming together with artists, but just being in contact and following other artists' work and exchanging about the process. That I feel it doesn't just help me, but it also helps them in a way of, we all have a very subjective, very subjective view of life, and in a way of sharing with other artists that bit of subjective, how we see the world, it also helps them, and them sharing helps also us.
I agree. I actually have to tell you that you're doing a really amazing job in adding these wonderful captions to your images. It kind of really explains the person you are and the kind of research that you are carrying on. I guess this is really unique. I mean, not many artists actually spend time on creating a strong narrative to elevate their works. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. Some artists maybe are more instinctive, they don't even have a narrative, but they do amazing things. While I noticed in your posts, you always try to enrich, not justify, but enrich your content, and I guess this is really wonderful, and I really like to read those captions.
Thank you. I really appreciate your comments. I feel the process of making and everything I read and places I go to, and poetry and music, everything I come across, I feel somehow feeds into my art practice. And in a way, I feel if I excluded the audience from the process, all what helps me and inspires me and allows me to reflect on my own work and
Absolutely.
To continuously, I feel this is very much part of the process, and I feel it's not just the end product that here's a beautiful bronze leaf and buy it from me, but I feel there is a beautiful leaf I've been working on.
Wow, really nice.
So it's not just the
I actually have lots of questions about you know, I mean, they just, because in one post you really wrote about how you actually archiving all this beauty and you collecting leaves from different trees. And I mean, I really like this poetry, and I wonder, you know, in your case, you of course a sculptor, but a sculptor who replicates nature and actually tries to replicate it in very tiny details.
Well,
Uh,
capturing it really, something
yeah.
of the essence. I think that's
Hmm.
the one of the main thing that Sam and myself we really try to do in our work is to capture the essence, not
Hmm.
necessarily adding anything to it or modifying it, but
Hmm.
something that is very true, something that is very real, and also trying to draw connections with our own human experience. Um,
Hmm.
for example, we are very interested in preserving leaves that were eaten, that are ragged, that have holes in them. So already the weather and the insects,
Hmm.
they already made the leaf ragged. And we are interested in this concept of finding beauty and celebrating the beauty, not just in the very perfect things, but also in all the ravages of life, all the difficulties and all the imperfections there is. And also I feel this is something that inevitably leads us to ourselves, that we are not perfect all the time, and yet there is always some beauty in all the imperfections there is really. So
Absolutely. No, I agree. And the beauty is really there when you uh, actually exact word that you use is capturing, and it works really well with your work. When you capture the essence of those leaves, it kind of you're really able to express the power of them, the beauty, but also the sort of aura and energy that the corpse have. So I really can see this in your work. And I wonder, you know, I always go back to these themes, but I never get bored of asking questions. I see the leaf has the in one of the initial motif in ornamentation,
yes.
and together with flowers and things. But I guess the leaf itself has always been used in the history of ornamentation with different symbols to recreate an architecture which was closer to nature, perhaps. And in the stages of this process, I always the leaves have been a bit transformed or readjusted according to the style. In your case, you don't readjust, but you capture. You don't play with
Yes.
the form, at least what I've seen. And I just wanted to ask you. I mean, of course, you already said, but I wanted to ask you if you went through this research is the as historical as the
Yes.
beginning of human life.
Yes, I think the very interesting thing you mentioned is that throughout art history, ever since ancient times, leaves and nature, they were always used as a decorative element in architecture and in art for the background. And
Mhm.
although there was a time, you know, but nature really has always been something complementary, not necessarily taking the front stage, not necessarily being the main
Mhm.
subject
I see
as if
what
it
you mean. Yeah.
was. And and I feel there is something really interesting in choosing a subject such as leaves that are growing in abundance everywhere, and
Mm.
and trying to look at the very very small details of them, and also trying to treat them as something that really through the smallest of details how the bigger picture can be explored. So you know, the Fibonacci sequence and the golden
Mhm.
ratio and all the laws that exist in nature and in human beings, in the universe, and the river patterns, and
Mhm.
so how these can connect together. As for doing the research in the decorative art history, this is something that, for example, if we had a residency with a museum, this is something we could really explore in detail. A
Mhm.
little bit, I started doing this a few years ago at the V&A, because I really would like to have a residency there in London, and already started looking into the stained glass, how they, because leaves during the summer as you look up to the sky and you see how the sun shines through the leaves. They almost have this stained glass patterns.
Absolutely, yes, you're right.
Translucency. So I started doing a bit of research into how leaves were used and how stained glass was created as a way of mimicking that effect.
Interesting.
So if I had an opportunity to have a residency with a museum, that would be something to explore for a period of time.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And another conceptual question that I wanted to ask you is, I'm thinking as leaf as one of the shortest element of nature to survive.
Yes.
The life of a leaf itself is just a few months.
Yes.
And with your process, you create an immortal piece instead. So there is, of course, the elevation from what it was used historically as a background element to the main character. But also you're creating a decomposing object and you're transforming it into an immortal piece of, I guess you always work with bronze and metals, right?
Yes.
Was that a choice, or you also explored other materials, perhaps some materials which have a shorter lifespan?
Yes, I personally have explored working with textile. There is another ongoing project with pounding the leaves into fabric and preserving them, creating really beautiful patterns. That's another ongoing project. I have a different account for that. So trying to capture leaves in textile, but that's a very soft medium. When it comes to bronze, I think there is something very beautiful and again very poetic about capturing something ephemeral that doesn't last for long, just as you mentioned, something that has a very short life cycle and returns to the earth naturally. But it's a bit like taking it out of the flow of life. You know, like recording a piece of folk music, for example. When they record the folk music, it's no longer going to continue passed down generations and change, but it will be captured in the same form for as long as we can listen to music. So it's similar in a way that it's captured, immortalized somehow, and also the delicacy put side by side with the robust quality of the bronze. I think this contradictory nature, I will bring this a bit closer to show you.
Yeah.
So the contradiction of fragility and strength, I think these two things, how something delicate in detail can exist in something hard and solid. I think these, the juxtaposition of two opposing qualities is also something we are interested in exploring.
Interesting. Thank you, Hanna. One more question in regards. Now I want to ask you something about the technique that you used, but you're free to not mention it if it's like a private and secret one.
Sure.
So I wanted to ask, is this are those made through a process of casting, and is the leaf actually buried in the object, or that is not inside?
The leaf burns in the process, so it turns to ash. So our name, ash leaf, is the poetic interpretation of this process, that each leaf turns to ash. So what we do is life casting, where the original organic material, the leaf, disappears in the process.
Wow.
So if you imagine the leaf going into a kiln, and then it burns completely, it leaves a hollow cavity, and in that hollow cavity, so this is a flask here, and this is a bit about the process. Here several leaves are attached to a funnel, and here you can see several leaves. They have little runners attached to them to allow the bronze to flow, and then this is being put inside a flask, and it's covered by a heat-resistant plaster. And then this goes into a kiln. So this heat-resistant plaster has a void inside, leaf-shaped void, if you imagine, several of them. And then when this heat-resistant material reaches the same temperature as bronze, then it's taken out of the kiln, and hot bronze goes in there, in this cavity, by the force of the centrifugal force. It's a centrifugal casting, how these leaves are cast. So,
okay, wow.
So the original leaf
Very
disappears in
interesting.
the process.
Is this, again, quite a traditional method
It is very
of
traditional, yes, yes. It's since thousands of years ago, civilizations and all over the world, they kept rediscovering the last wax casting process. But the life casting, to replicate an object in a different material, to transform it into a more precious substance, I think that's been a quest for human beings ever since the beginning of time. You know, the alchemy of things.
Absolutely. Oh, thanks again, Hannah. Very fascinating, and I'm really happy that you're showing some of your works as well. I'm a big fan of them, to be honest.
Thank you. I'm a big fan of your paintings too. I think they are really, really intriguing.
Thank you very much. And I'd also want to tell you that my secret dream is to become a sculptor only.
Okay.
So,
interesting. Would you like to explore something similar, like your painting?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, I've been into sculpting in the past, but then I just follow the flow of my market. And actually, when you earlier asked me privately, you know, maybe we should really speak about, you know, how social media are affecting the way we create and things. And I have to say that, you know, it kind of drives my creativity a little bit, because I have always to readjust to my audience, to my markets, to survive. So I can't always, for instance, I have plenty of projects which I enjoy doing, but I don't even post them because the market is not maybe ready, or perhaps not even open to it yet. Not because they're too progressive, but maybe just because people now, they just connect myself to a certain object and a certain style making and creating. So when they see a different style, then they don't connect it to me. And, you know, at this point, you know, an artist becomes a brand as well. I mean, it's same, you know, with all these historical artists. If you see, you know, Dali, whatever, Picasso, even, you know, the most famous ones, you know, you connect straight away to a style. But then when you go to their houses and museums, they've got tons of paintings in a very different style, but perhaps, you know, they're not much there because, you know, they really adjusted to what the trend wanted. But I guess, you know, social media really play a strong game in it, because it's kind of an instant feedback, and the game is very fast. So
yes, I think there's what you're saying is something very important, and also talking about it is important, because being categorized, put into a drawer that you do this and that's the only thing you do, that I feel human beings, we evolve, we change a lot throughout our lifetime, and we are not going to keep producing exactly the same work what we did even just within a few years. It changes, it evolves. And I also think the variety, to also having interest in a variety of different projects, something completely different. They may not be even connected to each other, but yes, it's a tricky thing when you become associated with a name or with a brand, and then people expect, it's almost like social media, developing your own voice or your own style, and then, you know, you keep seeing the same post and you can already, without seeing the name, you know who that belongs to.
Exactly, yeah, before seeing the name, they already know who the artist is. And, you know, this is what the social media fastness have amplified, not created, because it always existed, but definitely amplified. And then, you know, it goes back to those sort of feelings that you have while posting new image. Perhaps, you know, you're not settled with another project, so you don't know the reaction of your audience. And I mean, I'm really sensitive to feedback, so it's always a bit like keeping the balance to taking a risk and not taking the risk. And I guess with this project as well, just today I wanted to create an archive for all the sunset conversations, which are kind of rising in numbers, and also the interest is rising. So I said, perhaps I really need, you know, like an archive on Instagram to collect all this sunset conversation and not to create too much confusion on my profile. But then, you know, even creating a new profile gave me a bit of instability, you know, like, oh my God, a new profile, you know, starting from zero, because we already project ourselves into the idea of growing, becoming bigger, and, you know, we suffer if the project fails and all those things. While in my profile, I kind of play in a safe comfort zone, really connected more to my art and more to me. And but anyway, when I created a new profile, I realized that, you know, on a new profile you can't upload video longer than 10 minutes. So I mean, I can't even do it. But you know, I kind of feel that stress of you know, creating for a certain speed and to a certain speed. Creating for a social network as well, and also, you know what?
There is certainly a pressure, a continuous demand, a demand to show up. I feel when I don't post anything for days on social media, I feel as if someone was already expecting me to post something or to turn up or to say something. I feel I almost need to apologize that I'm sorry I haven't been online for 2 days.
And actually, people do apologize, like when they're off for a month or something. Yeah, you're right.
Actually, it feels like, is it really necessary? We all have our own lives in physical reality, and sometimes we are just busy participating and creating. And I feel while I'm recording content for social media, I'm not actually making anything. I'm just recording, documenting what I'm doing, but it's not the actual time of making. With regards to what you mentioned in taking risks and presenting something that you may not receive a good feedback, I feel it always helps me to just ground myself and find a place where I trust that just following my intuition or instinct, that this is what I'm exploring and this is what interests me, and just trusting that if anyone is following my work and is interested in what I'm interested in, they will be interested in whatever there may be I'm exploring in that scenario. I feel there has to be some trust. And of course, each time I post something, there is a couple of followers who disappear, but there is a couple of other followers who appear. And I feel, in a way, do I want to present something to the outside world that is so far from me? Because I feel this is a big trap in a way, to continue repeating ourselves all the time. It's impossible. I feel I cannot repeat the same thing twice. I cannot even repeat the same content twice.
Absolutely. And also, you know, another thing that makes me thinking a lot nowadays, and you know, there's so many companies and artists and people that are using Instagram or other social networks to fake their analytics. You know, nowadays it's really easy to get involved into this kind of companies who grow your profile and things like this.
Oh yes, I receive about 15 emails a day to sign up to something.
Exactly, and lots of people use them. I can see that there's plenty of users using them, and I wonder, what about the quality control? I mean, we're just bringing up people who just strive to be there, but perhaps don't have the quality to be there. Where's the, I mean, it kind of goes even beyond the people choice. It's just, you know, this kind of almost IT techniques to grow your profile, which, no, because already, you know, when you skip the gallery and the exhibition, you're not presented by an established, let's say, curator or whoever. So you don't have filters on Instagram. You can really grow from nothing without any filter. The people decide who's best, let's say, or at least most appreciated. But now, you know, with this kind of techniques of growing pages, I just see people 1 month gaining, I don't know how many tons of followers, and then getting out there because they become commercials. And I really feel scared about this, you know, because what is it going to be like? It's just so easy to do it now. And I mean, I'm not scared of competition, don't get me wrong. I just say, where is the ethic behind it?
Yes, I think it's similar to, there can be an analogy between online publishing. So many people have to read through it to make sure that it's good quality, there is no spelling errors, that it's all top quality content. And, you know, online, anyone can publish anything without, there is no one reviews it, no one has an ethical standard or even any kind of quality check, really, which makes it really difficult, especially in visual terms. I think when it comes to art, the difficulty is those who are non-artists, how can they differentiate between quality art and amateur art? I feel there's nothing wrong with people, you know, painting paintings as their hobby, but I think there is a big difference in terms of the journey one has gone through training and practicing as an artist, and someone who is just doing this in their free time, you know, 1 hour a day or 1 hour a week. And
Absolutely.
I feel here is a bit of a difference, that if even those people who are just hobby artists, they can buy followers, you know, for paying one of these tech companies, I feel they may be able to reach a bigger audience than professional artists who choose not to pay for their followers, but growing organically.
Yeah, absolutely. And
So
I mean,
I
yes,
think
sorry.
it's difficult when it comes to that. It's not a competition, but how can you, who can say those people who are consuming visual content that, hey, don't spend money on this because this is not by a trained professional artist. This is just something someone made in 5 minutes on a computer. And I think training or educating the public, I think that's a big difficulty, especially online. How to educate non-artists about investing in something really that has value, how to see value in art. I think these are questions to explore, or at least I feel whenever I meet people who come to our exhibitions or open studios, these are the conversations we often get into, to talk about what is valuable and how can you determine if there is any value in the piece of artwork you're seeing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I'm really enjoying this conversation, by the way. As think it's already been half an hour. It means, you know, generally when it goes over the 20 minutes, it sounds like a very good one. No, but I totally agree. I mean, nowadays you can pay for your success, and this is really something we all should fight against. You can pay to get your book published. You know, it's very easy. Even if you have a crap book, you can pay and get it published out there. But, you know, I guess, again, there's a lack of opportunities that bring people to do this, to feel like they need to cheat in a certain way. Because, of course, there's a lack of opportunity. There is not enough sensibility in the media, perhaps, to explain the need of art, even in everyday life. You know, they explain how important it is to have the latest sneaker shoes, but not how important it is to have, perhaps, a really...
Yes, it's a continuous, I feel this is a battle that every artist faces continuously. What is it for? The question, what do I do with this? Because it's, especially when we talk about analog artworks, which are non-interactive or non-digital, they are not moving, they are not flashing, they are not doing anything. They are, all you can do with them is just open your soul and try to perceive something that another human being was trying to express through that medium. And I think that's a very high expectation. It's a high demand art places on anyone who comes into contact with it. And I don't really know what is the right approach to this, or how to how to help society with this. I feel the only thing we can really do is just to continue meeting people, not just artists, but all kinds of people, and just keep talking to them, just keep this conversation alive, and keep asking questions from them, and allow people to appreciate artworks. I think it's also, I feel sometimes art can be very intimidating for those who are not in the art circles and not in the art world, because people feel they don't know anything about it. And I feel art is not necessarily something that you need to know about. Art is something you need to put yourself in a place where you can be open to it, where you can really appreciate it.
I agree. I feel at any stage of enlightenment, and when I say enlightenment, I mean, you know, art, enlightenment, art, understanding. I think people can read different things in the same artistic object.
Yes, certainly. It's open to such a versatile interpretation, and I think that's the beauty in it, that no two people will see or understand the same thing. But at the same time, I feel every piece of artwork that was ever created adds something to the world. It's like a little puzzle piece that adds to the bigger picture.
I really like this, your conception of art. Hanna, we spoke quite a lot. It's been very long, these conversations, and you know, I always feel like you want to speak more and more, because I really enjoy these moments, and you know, the sunset is almost coming around, and you know, I hope I can bring this project further, you know, even with all the pressure that it takes me, being a not-for-profit, and anyway, you know, I need to prepare every time a little bit to make sure that everything works fine, and to get the wonderful guests as you.
Yes, well, I wish you well, and good luck with the project you're doing. I hope you find some strength to continue.
Thank you very much, Hanna. Just one thing I want to do is, when you do your next open studio or exhibition, I'd like to promote it on my page, because I have lots of audience in London, and I'd love them to get to know your research, because it's really natural, it's really sustainable, and to be honest, wonderful.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for having me.
I see you. Bye-bye.